suppose we should start the show.
Oh, yeah, it's the show.
That could just be the show. It's nice.
Gotta talk about fucking dead people and stuff. Podcast that was here, recording on Monday, just like every other Monday from the last few years. Not sure why you'd ask such a strange question about us not recording on Monday. No idea what you're even talking about. We've been here all along, just a couple of podcasters with good brains, all functioning just fine, never missing a single beat. My name is Bob, sitting across the way from my good friend and co-host. That's Abe. How you doing tonight, Abe?
Doing well, Bob.
Yeah, here we are. Lori is here too. How you doing tonight, Lori?
Are we going to talk about ice cream?
Are we going to talk about ice cream? That's how Lori's doing. Tonight is Wednesday, not a Monday at all. May the 17th, 2023. My brother Duncan's birthday.
Aww.
Oh, look at that.
Video.
Happy birthday,
Happy
Duncan.
birthday, Duncan. It's a beautiful day in Charlottesville. Just got back half an hour ago or so from umpiring a Little League game. Not coaching tonight, but umpiring another game in our league.
Oh, how did that go?
It went just fine. I don't think I really blew any calls.
Of course you don't.
Have you, I don't know how long you've been doing this umpiring, but have you faced the wrath of any parents?
One day is how long?
Yeah, one day is my...
No kidding.
Not since like the 7th grade or something was the last time I umpired I mean, that's not true. I've umpired spottily in this league, just like an inning at a time here or there. But this was my first full game in a while. And yeah, I mean, you get like a little side eye from the coach if it went against them or something like that. And I had like one moment tonight where I let slightly too long of a beat go before I rung a kid up on a strikeout, and I felt bad about that. But it was definitely a strike, so it was fine.
Was there a reaction to that delay?
No, not really.
Oh,
I mean, whatever.
This is not.
I
this is not a high stakes thing.
I was umpiring
either.
against the for the other two of the minor league teams in our same minor league. So I sort of know both the coaches, and we just sort of step in and umpire for each other's games when we're available.
They're all buddies.
Yes,
They
it's all
chit chat
fun.
the whole game. It's cute.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. Let's see. And then, of course, we weren't here on Monday because of more baseball stuff. But
Boy,
just a couple more weeks to go.
Oh, wait. The people need to hear the ending of the game, don't they?
Did we talk about the other game?
No, we didn't talk about it. I don't even know what... I know you just said that it's Wednesday, so I believe you, but I don't truly know that it's Wednesday. But we didn't talk about it, so never mind.
Right. Because the people have never heard about this game. There was a really thrilling Major League Baseball game. Not Major League as in like the Braves and the Yankees or what have you. But Calvin's team played last Friday a game against the best team in the league, the undefeated team in the league, the team that will represent our fine little league in the citywide playoffs here in a couple of weeks. And short story of a long story is that we get to the 6th inning, down by a bunch of runs. We score 15 runs to take a 4-run lead in the top of the 6th. We score 15 runs to take a 4-run lead. And then go into the bottom of the 6th, get a quick out, and then put 2 runners on, and then the game is halted, suspended on account of darkness. And we need to postpone the finishing of that game until the following Monday, which was this past Monday.
Question, what happened? Like, was the game not scheduled? I mean, do they not know when the sun's going to go down? Like,
Well, when you have a 15-run inning...
Okay.
It tends to extend things.
It lasted longer than anyone thought.
Yeah.
Also, it was Friday, so people wanted, like, you don't need to get to school tomorrow. Like, Fridays
Gotcha.
are my favorite because people are not itching to get out of there.
Right. It was a super cloudy, very low sky, very cloudy night. So it went from being, like, sun up everything fine because all of the clouds are lit up. But when that sun goes down below the horizon and it's a cloudy night, there's just not any light.
When the sun sets is what they refer to. When the sun sets.
Not enough light anymore. So we went from being like totally fine 1 minute to, oh, wow, this is rather suddenly quite dangerous the next minute. So we had to call it at that point. Anyway, so we're leading 17-13 with a run, 1 out and 2 runners on, and like just unbelieving that I have to wait the whole weekend to to get the final 2 outs against this team that they absolutely did not expect to beat, if we're being perfectly honest with one another. And we come back on Monday evening. We got to play this team again. It was a Friday and a Monday game against the same team. So we're just going to finish the first game as quickly as possible. Just need 2 outs.
There was 1 on first, 1 on third, and 1 out. So
so we
need 2 outs.
Get up there. My pitcher goes out there, throws 1 pitch, an absolute frozen rope line drive towards my shortstop, who reaches out, shifts slightly towards the second base bag and stabs it and gets the first out, or the second out in the inning at that point. So 1 pitch, and now we're at 2 outs, and it's like, oh man, what's going to happen?
Oh, boy.
And 3 pitches later, so it's a 4-pitch inning, another hot shot up the middle. My shortstop, who's our best defender on the team, by I don't want to say by a wide margin, but our most consistent, natural-looking ball player, again, goes up the middle, makes a great play, steps on the bag at second base, and that's the ball game.
It was very fast.
Quite thrilling.
Wow. So,
and then we lost the next game 17-2.
Right, and then we got our asses handed to us. But it was a tremendous victory.
Their soul lost.
They were so happy with themselves. I was very happy as well.
That's good.
But that's the Little League Baseball. Did you get into anything fun this weekend, Abe, that's worth mentioning at the top?
No, but you've mentioned Monday a couple of times now. Like in a couple of months, like we'll need to do this recording on a night that's not Monday, because one of my friends, like, he's got like a kid, and the kid is now of age to where like he's into wrestling, and so we're gonna go to like a Monday Night Raw.
Oh yeah, you're gonna go see live
like from
wrestling.
Now on.
Yeah.
Do they like tour, or are they gonna be like in Gwinnett or something? Or
I think it's the Phillips Arena or whatever it's called, State Farm.
Oh wow,
like
big arena down there in downtown.
Yeah. But no, it's weird. I just haven't watched wrestling in many, many years, so I don't even know if like some old geezers are still hanging around. Like, oh, it's a Hulkster. Still.
Are you? I doubt that. Are you gonna read like you got to start reading the blogs or whatever do so you can stay up on the current drama.
I'm sure there's like a YouTube recap page somewhere, but I'll be familiar with all the different costumes and stuff by then.
It's one of those things that's always existed, and it's always existed basically completely outside of my consciousness. Like I've known, like, because when we were kids, of course, wrestling was a big deal, but if you didn't watch it, you didn't really ever have to interact with it. Like I think there was a Hulk Hogan, like was there a cartoon or something? And then he had some movies.
He did the movies.
And so like the Hulk Hogan was sort of part of the culture, and like you sort of know the Macho Man is and that sort of stuff. But like there's this huge subculture of professional wrestling that you can be just utterly, completely unaware of if you choose to be.
Right.
You could say that about literally anything now, but back then that was rare.
Yeah.
It was rare for something to be so well known that it does exist, but never see it.
Right. It's a very weird genre. Like it's just like this weird, like fake.
It's so fucking weird.
Right? It's just it's just when I was young, I was like, oh, that's pretty cool.
The gayest thing.
It makes a lot of. She said it's the gayest thing.
It is up there.
It is pretty gay.
It's just big burly dudes being dramatic
and
posturing.
It's not even. It's weird because it's not even precisely gay in any recognizable way. Like nothing.
It is.
I mean, it's extremely homoerotic. Obviously,
I guess that's what it is. It's the most homoerotic thing that I think ever has existed. It's just so theatrical and just like lots of shiny skin, and like it's just such a dude thing. It's so weird.
Yeah, it's a very dude thing. There was that episode of South Park where like the kid got into wrestling, and basically the whole thing was like pro wrestling is kind of like soap opera for dudes. You know, like they'll occasionally wrestle, but most of the time they're telling a story. Oh, this Sunday I will, dethrone you or whatever. Like this whole back and forth.
And what's funny is like some people would say that you're just following politics, and it's the same thing as like it's just what you're into versus what these other people are into, and like no judgment or whatever. But fuck that. Like I don't follow politics for this stupid internecine drama nonsense of it. Right? Like none of that appeals to me in any way. And in fact, I despise that part of it. So I don't.
Right. Also, it's not a fair comp. I mean, pro wrestling would be more like trash TV or whatever. Just like some guilty pleasure
it's
thing.
Like sports or soap opera or reality, like Kardashian stuff.
Right, like that sort of thing. Oh, not Monday, but on Friday, I almost forgot. I played poker with some friends, Tyler and friends.
Nice, Tyler, a longtime friend of the show, listener.
Yeah,
arguably,
that's right.
From time to time,
and heading out west to one of those places with the national park.
Good description. Great.
Yes.
Yeah, he makes a seasonal pilgrimage. Like he spends half the year in Georgia and half the year out west in national parks.
Yosemite?
Something like
that. Anyways, the only time I play poker nowadays is just like whenever Tyler has a game at his buddy's place, and it is always the case that I open strong. It's the same thing from like 20 years ago. Like I will have a lot of chips, and then I will lose. Like it's like the same.
But do you
sequence
think?
of
Are you trying to win the whole time?
I am. Yes. I mean, I'm trying to win.
I don't believe you.
I
am. Like, no, you're not.
I think it's like when you're playing a lot against a lot of people, my limited scam is effective. But when you're playing against one other person, the scam falls apart.
It's hard to get a read on Abe in a crowd of people, but you sit down across the table from Abe, and it's just you and him, and
you're like, wait a minute,
you figure it out pretty quick.
And then the wheel does come off, but I'll get better at this.
I believe your text was you texted us something about how
you had an insurmountable lead.
Insurmountable lead throughout the night, and that was all you'd said. And I finished the statement by saying, and then you lost, right? Like it's the only answer where knowing you and knowing your poker history is insurmountable lead throughout the night actually means that you definitely lost.
Right. Yeah. It almost goes without saying. That's why I didn't mention it, because it's just like, how that story ends.
Anyway, just to close the loop on my stupid open there, Dianne Feinstein is utterly not with it. And it is completely obvious now. She came back to the Senate. I think it was over a week.
She was there all along, as it turns out. I think that's a mischaracterization. She was there all along.
Right. So she was, in reality, in the real world, she left the Senate a few months ago to go recover from shingles, was what her office said, and which is like that adult chickenpox thing or something like that.
Are you suggesting that she did not have it?
I don't know. Maybe she did. I'm suggesting it's entirely believable that she has no idea that she had it, if she had in fact had it.
Although that'd be preferable to, like, she doesn't know, she's not in a present state of mind. Like, I don't know what other way you can word it, like, where she's, like, physically fine. I mean, for, like, an almost 90-year-old, but, like, she's just not there. So we're going to give her some time.
She's like physically fine, Abe says, as she's been wheeled around the Senate and around Washington, D.C. for the last week and a half. But yes, physically totally fine.
Ableist, Bob.
Everybody can't be Jimmy Carter. I mean, like, wheeled around 90, that's typical. That's not unusual.
Yeah.
Fair, fine.
You can be physically fine and still be in a wheelchair.
She'd been gone for months and returned to the Senate last week, and there was all these stories about, she's back and she's voting and she's going to help the Democrats because they need every vote to confirm judicial nominees and all of that sort of thing. And she met with reporters, which was not a smart move by her staff. It was allowing her...
But almost necessary, right? Are they going to hide the 90-year-old?
Yes,
forever?
They're going to hide the 90-year-old if they know...
do with Joe Biden?
What the fuck they're doing? And in a little room with a few reporters, This is according to Slate. She said no when asked if she'd been working remotely, and back in the Senate, have you been working remotely while you were out? She said, "No, I've been here. I've been voting." She shot back, "You either know or don't know."
A little sass.
Yeah, a little sassy for somebody who's missed nearly 100 votes in the last couple of months.
You don't lose everything all at once, as it turns out. That sticks with you.
Yeah, so it's very sad, I think, in an obvious sort of way, and
in a human way, yes.
Obviously, also hilarious.
There still is no mechanism to remove. It's not like the occasionally honest George Santos, otherwise lies all the time. There's a process to remove him because there's a charge. There's you did something and maybe we can.
The
kick you
Senate
out.
could give her the boot.
I know, but on what grounds? I mean, what sort of precedent was it? Just old? Let's do that man-woman camera test.
Non-compos mentis or whatever that fucking bullshit Latin is. You believe you've been here for the last 3 months. You've been in California for the last 3 months. Sorry. Thank you for your service.
That would be there should be one. We can ask you one question, and the people on her political side can generate the question, and she would still not get it right. I am so confident that she's not aware of what's happening. Anyone can ask any question, what day is today? What is your name? And if she gets it right, she's in. Gets it wrong, she's out. Should be something like that.
It's not like it's the Joe Biden thing where they have to hand him big oversized note cards with size 60 font that has the questions on it ahead of time with the pronunciation of the reporters' names because he can't actually see into the second row of the press gaggle, so he just has to be told who the fuck is out there and what the question is going to be because he also can't really hear probably what the question is.
I think the hearing, they got tools for that. I mean, the vision maybe, but maybe. You don't think he's got a machine?
And let's not just leave it on the Democrats. Plenty of old Republicans too.
But Chuck Grassley is pretty sharp.
Chuck Grassley seems pretty sharp, and that's why
he's the same age as as Feinstein, almost the same age.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's different for everybody. It would be my preference that Chuck Grassley hadn't recently won. Did he not recently win another?
Yeah, because he's basically gonna be there until his early 90s or whatever.
Right. There's a difference there, and it's not a sexist difference to note that Feinstein shouldn't be the senator from California anymore. And it sounds silly, but it is important that the most populous country or the most populous state in the country is represented by people who are, in fact, cognitively aware of their surroundings and know what's going on in their own lives. I mean, it must matter, right? We cannot just be in a situation where we elect the name of the person to the Senate or to the presidency or whatever, and we just ignore everything else because the staff does all of the work anyway. Do these jobs matter or do they not? And if we're going to say that they matter, there should be some consequences when one of them is no longer.
But outside of what you're suggesting, the Senate could just kick her out for whatever. They would have to, going forward, come up with some sort of mechanism to remove. Maybe have. Once you clear 70, you get one more term, some sort of term limit after a certain age, so you can't get to 88 and still in office. I don't know what the solution is because, if you do a fixed thing with age, aren't people supposed to be living longer and longer?
Right. The solution is that the people who are aware of the situation have to take responsibility for it. It's on the Senate for not giving her the boot. It's
not
plain
the voters.
and simple.
Not the voters who voted her in and Grassley in and other people in?
Well, it's on the Democratic Party for failing to make clear to her that she needed to retire and be done before she ran the last time. That's fine. To some extent, the voters are presented with a binary choice and what the fuck are you going to do? And you're in California, the Democrat is almost certainly going to win. I mean, sure, to some extent, responsibility lies with the voters.
That would be the, by the way, just a sidebar, that would be the campaign angle. Does somebody come out and a cycle ago with Feinstein and just say, I'm just going to vote the way Feinstein, if you like whatever she was voting for, I'll do the same thing, but I can also do Sudoku and run half a marathon. I can do other things. I am a competent 50-year-old and I'll just run the same plays, just vote me in, get rid of the old lady, and that'd have been fine.
Right. And Fetterman can't talk either, by the way. Fetterman simply cannot speak and should probably not be in the Senate. Either should have been removed from the ballot back before this all happened.
And it's an easy out because, I mean, I don't know how much longer he wants to give this a go, but, like, you know, they have a Democratic governor, and so, like, you know, it's not like they would lose a spot. If he just stepped down for health reasons and then they appoint somebody and they can run.
Is that how it works in Pennsylvania?
Election.
I actually don't know off the top of my head what the...
Don't they usually fill in somebody until they run a special election? I mean, I don't know how the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania does it.
Pennsylvania Senate vacancy law. Let's see here.
Flip a coin or possession arrow. Some other gimmick.
Yeah, next regularly scheduled general election. So governor gets to appoint until the seat is decided during the next regularly scheduled general election. So, yeah, I don't know why they do have a Democrat in Pennsylvania as well. There should probably be more of a...
And the next regularly scheduled one is like in 28, right? Because he just won just this past cycle. So that's a pretty... Yeah, maybe he thinks, like, this is 6 years. Let me give it a go. If maybe at the end of the year he can reassess. But, like, why jump ship now? What if his whole health thing turned around?
Yeah, brains have been known to get way, way better over time, right? After major events like that.
Hope springs eternal.
All right. This morning, Abe, very early this morning, you're like, hey, good morning, Bob. It's fucking 7:30. Watch this video of a guy getting killed.
With reservation. I sent it anyways, but I was like, oh, boy. I'm sending a link to somebody dying at 7 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah. I will suggest that, because we're going to talk about this in some detail, I would recommend that you either watch the video yourself. I will attempt to describe this as accurately as possible without editorializing in any fashion until after
By the way,
I have described it.
I don't recommend that you watch it.
Right, but this is the thing that we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
So if you need to see it with your own eyes, by all means. It's not graphic, but it is nauseating. And if you have a certain no stomach for this sort of thing, then don't watch it, certainly. The video is one of those overhead, like, dome cams. So it's like this big circle thing that you see in convenience stores. This is a Walgreens in San Francisco. And the shot is of the front door of the Walgreens. The front door is propped open. Some of the other doors are closed, but the door in question is propped open. There's a security guard standing in the doorway as a person approaches in a white T-shirt and jean shorts, looks like, and a bag full of merchandise. And the security guard points at him, or points at this individual, and there's no audio, but he's asking him to stop, asking this individual to stop. I'm just going to go with him, by the way. There's some question as to the biological realities here, but for our purposes here, we're just going to go with him, which I believe would be the preferred pronouns, but again, not going to mess with it. This person approaches and sort of walks into the security guard's outstretched arms. And then there's a shove as he tries to shove his way past into the open doorway. The security guard pushes back, and there is a scuffle. The merchandise, the bag is dropped on the ground. The security guard fairly quickly, within a matter of seconds, appears to have the upper hand. He hasn't subdued this person yet, but he is sort of wrestling him around. He's on his back. He takes a couple of swings at him. I'm not sure that any actual punches connect. But in fairly short order, he's got him down on the ground with his full body weight on him. And then after a little while, the struggling stops. So the things seem to be calming down. We'll find out later what apparent exchange is going on in that moment. As this is going on, and this is some 45 seconds into the video, people are just moseying back and forth in and out of the open door of the store, just sort of like stepping over the spilled merchandise curiously in some way, like sort of a curious glance at what's going
almost
on.
Almost as if it's routine. Like, oh, this thing again.
Right. They don't seem impressed or surprised by what's going on here in any way. And certainly no one acts in any fashion to assist with anything that's going on. There is no Good Samaritan or third party involved in this in any way. I'm not suggesting necessarily that there ought to have been.
Right, especially in that situation. You have a shoplifter, a parent, and the security guard tasked with preventing that from happening, right? Having an interaction. So, like, what is the point of a third person? Like, what would they... If there were, like, two customers fighting, maybe a third person, like, hey, let's just settle down.
To me, anytime there's a one-on-one situation and you can intervene and make violence actually less likely to go on, in my opinion, then, like, you should. I don't know what I would have done,
right?
Obviously, in this situation. And the prudent thing to do is almost certainly to just be on your way and not to intervene in any way. But my instinct, I believe, would be to attempt to at least help subdue this individual until... Because you're not going to resolve anything in a one-on-one situation, right? Like, I mean, unless there's an ability of some escalatory deadly force or other sort of implement to be used, most people are generally evenly matched with one another. And to me, it would be helpful to step in and try to calm things down. But whatever, I don't know, whatever. It's beside the point. Security guard has him on the ground, and then after a short amount of time, just lets him up. Not clear why exactly. At which point, the shoplifter grabs his bag and begins to back out of the open door of the store. They have now created maybe 3 to 5 feet of space between one another, and the shoplifter is backing out of the store. They are facing one another. And as he hits the threshold of the door, the shoplifter sort of bows up. He squares up with the security guard, who has, by the way, in this moment, has drawn a weapon. So the security guard has taken the gun out of his holster that he had on his leg and is pointing it at the ground. And as that gun is pointed at the ground, the shoplifter standing in the threshold of the store bows up, like squares up in a way, as though in what looks like an aggressive posture, I think is fair to say.
Where is this?
This is in San Francisco.
Right.
As in immediate response to the shoplifter squaring up against him, like bowing up is the sort of the only way that I can put it. The security guard raises his weapon and shoots the person in the chest.
Right.
And the individual collapses. The
backwards
body language
into the sidewalk, right? Like he
collapses out of the store into the middle of the sidewalk. Correct. The body language of the and by the way, the guard then immediately reholsters the weapon and walks out into the street. I don't particularly want to characterize his body language in that moment because I think it's very hard to do. On first watching, if I'm going to give my honest opinion of it, on first watching, my opinion of the body language of the security guard after the shot is fired is that's what you get, motherfucker.
So I just started watching the video, like over your shoulder, I can see it, and my interpretation of that body language is just like, yeah.
Right.
Like that's again, I don't know that guy.
Yeah,
but like I just beat a bunch of bad guys in a video game tonight, the Hogwarts video game, and it looked like he felt how I felt when I like vanquished a bunch of trolls.
Right. And you know what's weird is, by the way, there's no audio, as Bob mentioned. It's just all just video, and in that particular moment, his back is facing the camera. Basically, you can't actually see.
Can't see his face.
But I reached kind of similar conclusion as Lori. Like that was kind of, it's weird how you can kind of almost sense like the body
Well, you
language.
can think you can sense. You can't really.
Right.
But
To be fair, you've just watched him shoot a guy in the chest,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
And
Right.
so, and what you've done is you've seen it as a reaction to a person seemingly, because again, there's no audio, but in my head, when I watched it the first time, it was like that guy said something, right?
Right.
He didn't just make the bow up or the square up gesture, but he called him a faggot. He's like
Right. Something,
he called,
some sort of
he called him a
provocative kind
name.
of-
Something
right.
about that body language to me said, I am aggressing, right? I am
Right.
doing something that is
Right.
intended to insult you in some way.
Right.
And then when the arm comes up and the shot is fired, and then the guard puts the gun back into his hip, and he sort of flexes his shoulders almost like you can't.
Right.
You don't want to characterize what's going on in his head, but on first blush, on first watching it, I'm just giving you my opinion of what I saw, which was sort of a flex, sort of a I did the thing, right?
Right.
He then walks over to the person on the floor, the guy that he had just shot, and kneels next to him. They appear to be having some sort. You can't see their faces, but by their body language, you can see that they are in conversation with one another in some way. No longer aggressive in confrontation.
Also, the guy on the floor is dying, like actively dying. Like it's not
Right.
like a flesh wound that bled out later. Like he was like in bad shape.
Right. It was a few hours before he died, but yes, he was in bad shape. He wasn't dead by the time.
Right.
Like eventually, I don't know the exact time frame here, but the police did get there with EMTs, and he was unconscious but breathing when they got there, and they were able to treat him and get him on his way to the hospital, where I believe he died at the hospital. I don't think he died en route, but I could be wrong about that. Anyway, the video goes on. As I said, the guard is laying or kneeling next to him and is talking with bystanders now. The guy is there sort of writhing a little bit to the extent that he can. His arm comes up and sort of just flops around a little bit. He's sort of starfishing there a bit on the ground. It's very unpleasant.
Not a pleasant image to watch.
Right, and it's awful. And there are now people are not. I mean, still there are people, of course, walking by, not paying it any heed. But there is a small crowd that is gathered, and that is more or less the end of the relevant portion of the video. There is a passerby who appears to be attempting to render aid in some way, kneeling next to this guy and possibly applying pressure to the wound. Ultimately, the gentleman dies, and that's the summary of the video, as best I can do it. The reason that this comes up in conversation is because the district attorney in San Francisco ultimately has elected not to press charges, not to bring any charges against the security guard in question here, and this is a new DA. He is the one who replaced Chesa Boudin, who ran on a big-time criminal justice reform package and had done away with all sorts of prosecutions of seemingly minor offenses, and was criticized for doing a bad job as a prosecutor.
It coincided, like his policies, you may not be able to attribute 100% to what happened, but there was a spike in criminal activity. And so they're like your permissive ways, cash bail reform and letting, lower level whatever or petty criminals like slide and not enforcing like in this case where the Walgreens hired like private security, like there were a lot of places where some random people would rob a store, and the policy was to just kind of like, let's not create a hostile environment. Let the person steal. It's just property. We can work around it, and the problem with that is that it invites more of the same,
Right.
And so like all of that stuff kind of, this is liberal San Francisco, and that Boudin guy gets recalled. Like he was voted in like not too long ago, and they were like, oh, fuck this. And they got rid of him, and then they got this new person. And this person, under, just on the heels of the recall and the victory, he declines to prosecute this situation.
Right, which is a homicide, not necessarily a murder or manslaughter or anything like that, but it is certainly classified as a homicide. It is, to some extent, kind of fucking staggering to me. And obviously, I live in a relatively stable community, I suppose, and always have.
Other than that one time in 2017.
Right. Aside from
That's not people. They came from outside here. It's different.
Yeah. It would not be my common experience to go to the drugstore and see an armed security guard detail. Not just one guy, but apparently they have a 3-person team who,
yes.
as many as 3 people work this Walgreens at any given time. In this case, it was just a 2-person detail because it was, what was it, like 5 or 6 o'clock in the afternoon or something like that. But one of the guards was on break, and so this guy was on his own at the moment. But apparently during busy times, they have 2 or even 3 people working security at a fucking Walgreens, which it's just shocking to me that such a condition, that Walgreens believe that conditions are so horrible that they need multiple outside contracted security guards just to keep the fucking razors and shaving cream on the shelves. It's
right. I mean, I don't know the lay of San Francisco, so I don't know where this Walgreens was located. But there was just like a story in the New York Times like a week or 2 ago where Whole Foods tried to make a go of like reinvigorating this like community in San Francisco, like in the heart of the city, I guess where a lot of the homeless people are situated, and they try to make it a go, and like a year later they closed because like every day there would be some incident. Like there was like, I think there was a write-up in the story where one like call to 911 was like, it's the guy with the hatchet again,
right.
Like sent help or something along those lines. So it's like these frequent issues to where like you're gonna have to hire all this help, and then the employees don't feel safe. I mean, they're not getting paid that much. I know Whole Foods pays them well, but not enough to like witness that on the regular. And so they closed it. So I don't, this 3 security guard system may make sense based on where they're located in San Francisco.
There are some on the left, like Jamel Bowie and Michael Hobbs and some other sort of lefty media commentator types who continue to insist that this is all made up, that it's just anecdotes that get blown up out of proportion, and that any of this right-wing fear-mongering about organized retail crime or homeless people or not homeless people who go in and like 18, 20 at a time run into the Apple store and bash all the glass displays and steal all the merchandise and run out of there, and it all happens very quickly. That this is just extraordinarily rare, and like we've done the research, and cities aren't seeing this, but like this is belied by the fact that a Walgreens in San Francisco has a 3-person security detail that they have to have all the time because they're worried about the merchandise walking out the door.
Right.
Like
by the way, they do know, the buoys of the world, that they keep track of like crime in cities. In Atlanta, there's a report like in different districts of Atlanta, like theft has gone up. Like assaults have gone down, murders. Like they keep track of all the things, and so when people are fear mongering, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's made up. They could be blowing it way out of proportion, like everybody's getting robbed, but like there are incidents of these robberies and thefts and things like that. That's not made up, and it's ticked up over the last few years, right? I mean, I don't know about 23 so far, but like during the pandemic years, it ticked up.
Right. And this is a little bit beside the point from this conversation here, but you remember like early internet, the flash mob viral videos that would go around?
Yeah.
Like all these assholes would put on blue polo shirts and go into the Best Buy and just like stand around pretending to be Best Buy employees. Right. And like, or they do a flash mob and they do some fucking fun dance in Target or something. Yeah. And now there's 60 people doing a dance in Target. Right. And like, those are entertaining, fine, whatever. Underlying them to me was always an implicit threat right? Because I don't care for, like, and sure, like street theater is one thing, and they're just there to have a good time. But there's something sort of disconcerting about a whole bunch of people running into a place and taking it over, right? Even if their intentions are good or simply to be amusing or to entertain a few people or to have a viral video or what have you, like there's still something that breaks the social compact in a way that is uncomfortable for me, right? And so like that same thing of like goofy internet viral video flash mobs is the same. It's the same feeling that I would get watching some of these videos of like 40 wild teens run into Target all at once and grab as much shit as they can, and then they run out. Like, is that common? Does that happen at Target all the fucking time? No, of course not. But it is like it's primally disconcerting when you see a video like that.
But it's a nice strategy, though, right? Because you're overwhelming this Apple store. It's like, all right, there's too much. There's strength in numbers, and people get away. I don't know who comes up with these scans, but like. You're right. Like when I see it, it's like, look at these little shit. Like that's actually not a bad strategy. Go in.
Yes, in terms of the strategy, it's good. But don't you feel like sort of like if that happened while you were there, you would freak the fuck out. Like, oh God, what the fuck is happening?
Right. Yeah, it's a total breakdown of society. Yeah, it's not good. You don't want to.
Right. It's not good at all.
But also, like, what is the minimizing by the buoys of like I don't mean to single him out, but like.
Michael Hobbs. We can stick with Michael Hobbs. His podcast.
Okay.
He tweets it. Rotten in Denmark. Let's go with. We can blame him. Yeah.
Right, but it seems like they have a story in their head that they don't want to concede this point because it will give credence to some person they don't like. And again, you can take an issue and blow it way out of proportion and say this is like nationwide. This is the worst thing ever. Blah blah blah. But the original root source is true, right? Like. There's video evidence to show that these things happen, right? So
also, it can be the case that cash bail reform is a good thing, and also not prosecuting shoplifters is a bad thing, right? Like both of those things can be true. You don't have to take the entire baby and the entire bathwater all of the time. If it proves, like if we can make society marginally better by doing cash bail reform, where people aren't spending 18 months or 2 years in prison awaiting a court date because they don't have $1,500 or $10,000 to bail themselves out of jail, like we can fix that. And also continue to prosecute sort of low-level broken window style crimes that make life demonstrably worse for the average citizen, right? That like whatever. Back to this video and the decision to not prosecute this individual by the San Francisco DA, whose name I don't know, but he's the new guy, the guy who replaced Chesa Boudin.
Right.
So you sent this along. As part of a text, you also sent along the full report from the DA's office about their decision, and they do a frame by frame breakdown of the video for the first half or so of the report, and then they get to witness statements and police interviews and that sort of thing, and then their conclusions. I highly recommend reading it. In addition to, like, if you're just going to view the video, don't do that. It's a 25-page report, but in classic came out of a government office fashion, it's probably more like 8 or 10 pages of actual reading material there. I don't want to mischaracterize how you first sent this to me, so I'm looking at. You said the video footage is very clear. He was not in fear for his life. This is the guard that you're talking about. He took exception at the lunge, fake gesture forward, or by what he said, and then shot him dead. But this is the DA who replaced that Boudin guy who was perceived as soft on crime, so maybe not surprising he'd reached this conclusion. Far too many people, even in San Francisco, don't mind, quote, sending a message to shoplifters in this way. Maybe that's being overly harsh. So it seems like your opinion here... Or I'll just let you go ahead and give your opinion.
So when I watched the video and I kind of skimmed through the 25-page thing initially before I went back and read the whole thing. But like initially,
you are a government stooge after all. You know what to do with government documents.
It's like I can skim through the unnecessary parts. Okay, fluff, and then there's the meat. So when I watched it, so the video, there's no audio. The one thought that I couldn't get past was that there was a lot of like cavalierness, right? Like on the shoplifter's part and then on the security guard, right? So I hear about like this issue where people are just kind of shoplifting with abandon, like they're not trying to disguise it. Typically you're thinking people are trying to disguise, put it in their pocket or their coat, whatever they're stealing, right? They're making some effort to conceal the crime. In this video, this person was not only not concealing it, there was a security guard posted by the entrance, no deterrence at all, right? They don't perceive them as, okay, maybe not today. Oh, these fuckers got a security guard. I'll come back another time. There's no like, okay, plan B. Like, I'm going to steal this stuff, and I'm just going to walk out and fuck that guy, right? And he just kind of like walks towards them, and the confrontation happens, and then, the whole wrestling stuff, right? So the security guard wrestles him to the ground. At no point is this person, the shoplifter, is reaching for the security guard's gun or like trying to pull his own weapon of some kind.
Sure, that we can see.
Right.
Yeah, sure.
That we can see. Yeah, and again, we're just going based on what the video is. Maybe more information will come to later, but just based on the video, there is no effort to like escalate beyond like, I want to steal this stuff and get away from me, right? Initially, right? So he squirms out. For whatever reason, the guy didn't, like the most ideal situation if he just had him pinned down, the guy tired, and then, police officers arrive and he's arrested, everybody goes on with their day, right? That would have been the most ideal situation. For whatever reason, he kind of squirms out. He gets back up on his feet, and then this is where the gun is taken out of the holster. There's some words exchanged. There's that lunge motion, and then there was a shooting, right? And so I'm thinking, this person who's threatening that they have a knife that they're going to use and like threatening, saying other things, whatever, just to kind of incite them, right? And maybe even egging the person on. Again, I'm just speculating, oh, you're not going to do anything with that gun, some version, like whatever. You're not doing anything to me, right?
Right.
There is still an opportunity to de-escalate, right? And so like the cavalierness of the shoplifter, I make that point. Now it's the cavalierness of the security guard to where like, yes, potentially your life could be, in danger. Like this person he didn't do anything for the last minute or so with this knife that doesn't exist, but maybe...
Right, so we should clarify, the shoplifter was shouting over and over again, right, I'm going to stab your ass. I'm going to stab you. Right. I'm going to fucking stab you.
So
that sort of thing.
That,
so during this struggle, this is according to a couple of witnesses and also the security guard himself. This is the tenor of the conversation between the two is him saying, calm the fuck down. The security guard saying, calm down, and the shoplifter saying, I'm going to stab you.
Right.
Those are the words that are being exchanged between them throughout the struggle.
Right. So, in my eyes, there was opportunities to de-escalate, right? There wasn't like this imminent threat that the security guard was facing. There was no now, his characterization will obviously be different, and he's got the right to defend himself, as far as argument-wise. But I did not see anything based on the sequence of events. Like the security guard confronted the person. I mean, that's their job. I'm not faulting them for that. Trying to pin him down, no fault there either. When he gets up, if he were to lunge, he hadn't present any weapon, you can tackle him again. There's so many other things that could have happened, but instead, he just takes out the gun and just shoots him. I mean, he's got to assume that that's a lethal shot. I mean, he's just shooting them right at the torso, right? Like, is that where he hit him? Like, it wasn't like at the leg.
Seemed to hit him somewhere in the chest area, yeah.
Right. So that was a lethal shot to kill this person, right? And now, the DA declines to prosecute, and maybe, even if Boudin was in office and they took it to trial, he may have been acquitted, right? I'm not saying that this was a slam dunk case, but at least do something, because I mean, what we're having now is like with the shoplifting, if there is a perception that there is a permissive society to where, like, we're not going to sweat some kids stealing some stuff, right? You're going to invite more kids stealing stuff, right? So doesn't it hold true that if you have this lax, like, there's a plausible deniability or some flimsy defense you can raise to shoot somebody, choke somebody, whatever somebody, like kill somebody, you're going to invite more of those type of incidents, right? I'm not saying the security guard woke up that day is like, I hope I have an opportunity to kill somebody, right? This was in the heat of the moment. I don't think he was trying to, commit a murder. But again, the way that the system is, by just saying we're not even going to take it to court. What is the message that's being sent with that? Like, I think this sort of thing is going to continue to happen, because if the San Francisco DA is going to refuse to prosecute, most of these country bumpkin DAs are not going to do anything, right? Not to malign the country bumpkin DAs, but like, they're not going to bring up charges in a situation similar to this. So I think it's just like a coarsening of like society, where you allow this sort of stuff to just like, I can kind of see it both ways, but yeah, I can see why he felt in danger and let it go. It's just, I think that's not a good long-term policy.
So my initial reaction to the video was that the fact that there was a gun in the possession of the security guard made the ending of this story very nearly inevitable in some fundamental way. Especially given that he was alone in this situation. He did not have the benefit of a partner. His partner was on lunch break or something. And that inevitability to me was unfortunate, right? So that's my first reaction to the video was very similar to the way that you characterized it, was that this security guard seemed like there was that there were other options on the table to pursue a non-lethal end to this scenario, and he appeared to take advantage of the fact that he was no longer bound by the normal rules of human social interaction, because this person had violated the terms of the agreement in some way, and it sort of gave him license to use that gun in a way. And I was not particularly sympathetic to the guard's position, just having seen the video. And I'm not sure about the sending a message stuff as far as the prosecutor is concerned. I think that's a real thing, but also I think that I don't think that this is the prosecutor's office necessarily attempting to send a message. It doesn't mean that a message won't be sent, right?
Right.
It doesn't mean that word won't get out that security guards now have the relative freedom to shoot people when they claim that they feel that they are in a threatening situation. Grave bodily harm might come to them. Now they have a license to shoot shoplifters. I'm not saying that word won't get around to security guards and word won't get around to various potential thieves. I think that is a consequence of an action taken by the prosecutor's office and not necessarily an intent of the prosecutor's office. And I think that distinction matters. I don't know how much it matters practically in the real world, but I do think it's a distinction that matters to some extent. After having watched the video and then carefully reading through the report from the DA's office, and of course, to some extent, I must acknowledge I am being sold something here, right? This is the DA attempting to justify his decision in public fashion, right? So this is it's not just a thorough recounting of all of the relevant facts, it's an argument. Right. And the argument ultimately being that the guard should not be prosecuted, or that more to the point, that the prosecutor does not believe that this person acted with murderous intent or homicidal intent, unjustifiably homicidal intent, beyond a shadow of a doubt, right? Beyond any doubt that could be raised in a jury's minds. He doesn't think that he can get a conviction, so he's not going to bring a charge.
Right.
And further, I'm being sold by the security guard himself, right? So the security guard is going to present his state of mind in a way that is favorable to himself, and to his version of events that makes him, you're more likely to be sympathetic if you take him entirely at his word. The good news is we don't have to take him entirely at his word, because there is video and there are witness statements, and the witness 1 and witness 2 statements, I think, go a long way to confirming the state of mind of the security guard. They certainly don't do anything to detract from his telling of events. Nothing that witness 1 or witness 2 says is in contradiction of the way that the security guard describes the scene. And I think that is important. There is a third witness who seems full of shit. This is a person who took video of the event and characterized, and not of the event as it happened, but rather took video of the aftermath, and then went on local news media and gave interviews to the local television people, and does not read to me to be remotely reliable in terms of somebody giving an accurate accounting of what happened here. Maybe your mileage will vary with that, but to me, witness 3, who was largely dismissed, not quite dismissed, but not taken as seriously by the police as witness 1 and 2 were. I think that's fair to say.
I don't think I'm familiar with this victim 3 or this witness 3. Did their testimony diverge significantly from the first 2? Is that why they?
Video footage from witness 3 began only after the shot was fired. The individual who provided the footage also gave an interview to the news. News reports detailing the statement of witness 3 were also reviewed. The news article reported that according to witness 3, Anthony threw Brown, so the guard threw the shoplifter out of the store and headed back inside. Witness was quoted in media, "I'm ready to leave the store. The guard gives me a nudge. I'm like, hey bro, say excuse me," something like that, right? So he says, "I'm sorry, bro. You know, when I hear him say, damn shit, I'm tired of this, man. Not today." He walks outside, reaches for the gun, bam, bam. It was quick. It was fast. It was like a movie. There wasn't no time, you know. It was already in his mind, to do what he did. The video footage produced by witness only documents the moments after the gunfire and does not corroborate Washington or the witness's statement. So nothing in the video confirms any of this conversation.
Gotcha.
And witness 3 doesn't seem to be terribly reliable.
Okay.
And no one else has an accounting of that alleged interaction either, for what it's worth. Further, the fact that the security company's guidelines had been changed recently, they were instructions to the guard personnel were to engage in hands-on recovery of merchandise. The guards were also allowed to request receipts for merchandise, but in any event, they were to actively work to retrieve or recover any stolen items once it was clear that the individual who concealed the items intended to leave the store without paying. I don't know. I don't want to go through this entire thing necessarily, but everything that the security guard said to the police, to me, suggested a state of mind of he was feeling legitimately threatened by the actions of the shoplifter. Even though he appears in the video to be in complete control of the situation, he suggests that he's got a bum shoulder, that he's had his shoulder dislocated before, that the reason that he even lets the person up from the ground in the first place is because he's worried that while he is at that moment controlling him, his shoulder could dislocate at any time, leaving him vulnerable to whatever this person is going to do.
Right.
Plausibly, this is a reason to not be a security guard. I will say that if you're in your job description is having to subdue potential criminals or shoplifters, that if you are physically unable to do that part of the job, perhaps you shouldn't be left alone to do it.
Right. Also, these security guard places should have like a rating system, like where they're going to be assigned, because like he can, with his whatever physical limitations, make it work in Charlottesville as a security guard. Not that you guys have, I don't know if you have one, but like in a place where the risk is low, right? But for wherever the fuck this place is in San Francisco, like you would need somebody who's like very physically competent, like to where they can, maybe have a little wrestling background or some jujitsu or something. Like if you're going to work at this location, they should be given hazard pay, and you should be a lot fitter than this person.
Also, we don't train police, so what makes you think that we're going to have high standards for security guards?
Right, and I think I forget somebody. I read somewhere where they were saying like the number of hours a typical cop in California would need for training versus a private security guard, and the difference is pretty stark.
Yeah. So. What happens to close the loop on the lunge when the shoplifter is standing in the threshold on his way backing out of the door there, and he does the bow up, the sort of mini lunge thing that he does. Apparently, as it turns out, this is when he is spitting on the security guard, right? So he wasn't calling him a mean name. He wasn't reaching for a knife, as it turns out, but he was spitting on him. The way that the security guard characterizes his reaction is that he didn't know he was being spit on until after he had already fired the shot. Like maybe that's not even necessarily true, but what he's reacting to is the flex. He's reacting to the action of the lunge, and it all happens so quickly that the shot is fired. In his mind, the shot is fired even before he realizes that he had been spit on.
Right.
So he believed that he was potentially going to be attacked, possibly with a knife. Granted, no knife is recovered. There was no knife ever here, but that's only information that we know in the aftermath of all of this. So we have to go with what plausibly could have been in this person's head. And crucially, you don't have to, and you can disagree with this fact of the law all you want, but I'll quote from the DA's report here. The defendant is not guilty of murder or manslaughter if he was justified in killing someone in self-defense. The defendant acted in lawful self-defense if, 1. The defendant reasonably believed that he was in imminent danger of being killed or suffering great bodily injury, or was in imminent danger of being raped, maimed, or robbed, under circumstances in which he reasonably believed that he would suffer great bodily injury or death. So, crucially here, fearing for one's life is not the threshold for taking that shot. You can disagree with that all you want. Right. That's perfectly fine. But just the belief in the threat that great bodily harm is going to come to you justifies the shooting, right. or is one of the ways that you can act in lawful self-defense. The DA's report goes on to say the defendant acted in lawful self-defense if 2, the defendant reasonably believed that the immediate use of deadly force was necessary to defend against that danger, and 3, the defendant used no more force than was reasonably necessary to defend against that danger. And that, of course, is a 3 there in particular is also subjective. These are all subjective renderings of either a person's state of mind or what is or is not reasonably necessary. One shot, in some cases, would be deemed reasonably necessary use of force to defend against the danger. Also, like a crowbar across the dome probably would have been as well. Unfortunately, the weapon ready to hand in this case was a gun, and that's what the one shot was fired.
Right.
So, in summation of my long peroration here, I am of the opinion, having now read this entire thing a couple of times and gone through it, that it would be wrong to charge this person with unlawful homicide. Or not necessarily wrong, but that it is unlikely to me that you could convince a jury that there's not reasonable doubt that a homicide was committed here. And to me, I hate the phrase "play stupid games, win stupid prizes." I think it's glib and stupid. But as with most glib and stupid things, there's a truth to it that resonates with a great many people, which is not to suggest at all. I firmly don't believe that the act of shoplifting deserves a death sentence. Right? I'm wildly against that as a characterization of my position. But at the same time, this person has injected himself into a situation that had deadly consequences. And while I feel bad for that person, I feel equally bad for the security guard who has to live with the fact that he killed someone now, and who, by all accounts of these police interviews from that night, it doesn't rest easy on his conscience, at least in the immediate aftermath of it, or less charitably, at least in the moment at which he is in most danger of potentially being charged with a crime and is trying to make himself look as though potentially it weighs heavy on his conscience in some way. But according to his rendition of events, the person that he shot apologized to him, saying it shouldn't have gone this way, and he is immediately expressing regret that it went the way that it went as well. I know that we have different opinions here, so I'll let you talk now.
I have zero evidence to support what I'm going to say, but so much of what that security guard's saying sound like textbook bullshit, right? But like the motivations for his actions, right, are all convenient, right, to explain away a heat in the moment action. Like, again, I don't think he intentionally was trying to kill somebody. Things got heated, either the spit that he probably felt before he took action. I know, like, you see the placement of the spit, like everything, like the construction of the story that he's presenting is such that, like, it's like it falls exactly along his lines. There's not like one thing he did wrong. Everything happened in the right sequence to his benefit, and there's no way to dispute that.
I don't think that I'm sorry to interrupt, but I don't think that you can say that his version of events suggests that he did nothing wrong, because even in his version of events, I think that he did something wrong, which was firing a shot that, in my opinion, was unnecessary. Right. I still am of the opinion and of the useless wish that he had not fired that shot. I am just not convinced by any stretch that there's a prosecutable crime here.
Right. And I think you may be right on that. I mean, obviously the DA thinks so. I'm not sure how many other DAs. I'm sure Boudin would have prosecuted, but I'm not sure just average like Atlanta, let's say, what the DA here would do, right? But setting that aside for just a moment, I do want to say that this incident and incidents such as these create a perverse incentive, right? Like, it's not intentional, but like you have like hard evidence, right? Like the scuffle or the attempted shoplifting, then the scuffle, then some sort of interaction verbally, spit, whatever, like lunge, and then you see the shot, right? That's like the hard evidence that we have. And then all the soft evidence is like, what was my take of what you did, right? My take was that I was in fear for my life. My take was that you were meaning me harm. You were going to escalate violently. Like, it wasn't going to just be like, we're going to jaw at each other and then eventually I would leave. I was going to pull a knife and make a stab attempt, right? That's all just soft evidence, right? There's no evidence to support. He's just saying that, right? And like on the strength of that,
just for example, in a court of law,
right?
If a person makes a terroristic threat,
right,
and it's coming out of their mouth, and they are the one providing you with that information, like anything that you say. I mean, it's classic fucking formulation. Anything you say can be used against you in a court of law.
Well, but that's because the perverse incentive.
It's not like some asshole was running by and saying, that motherfucker's going to stab you if you don't shoot him, right?
Right.
It's the words coming out of his mouth, I'm going to stab your ass.
Right.
Like,
and
so it's a highly believable threat to be making in that situation. And Sorry, go ahead.
But what I'm saying is the sequence of events is important. He had a physical altercation. The security guard was not in fear of his life then. He didn't like reach for his gun in the scuffle to prevent some sort of thing, right? Like there's no point where he is in fear. He's talking to him like, I don't know what he's saying, but like it is, I am in control of the situation. Oh no, maybe I'm not in control of the situation.
So I disagree that you. I don't think that you can characterize this as him being in control of the situation.
He was in control of the situation.
I think that's where we disagree, because I don't think that anyone was in control of this situation. I think that it immediately became a relatively chaotic situation in which a person who believed himself to be physically infirm in some way felt immediately endangered.
There we go, with the soft evidence. Like, oh, little old me. Like, see, it's like all the hard evidence says, like, did you really need to shoot him? You just had a fight with him. You can take this guy. Like, you can just back up if he continues to come your way. Maybe then. I mean, there's so many, like, outs. He didn't take any of the outs, and this is what I mean by a perverse incentive. Like,
and I agree with you. I wish he hadn't shot him. But if we're going to ask the person with the gun to, I mean, granted, and it would be my preference that the gun wasn't in this scenario either. But how many outs were there for the person who ended up shot? Right? At some point. Right. We have to accept that this person had responsibility for their own life, right? And I'm not saying that you steal a bunch of, like, whatever. We don't even know what the merchandise was. It doesn't show up in the police report as to what he was stealing. But whatever he got from the shelves of the Walgreens, whatever he was taking, should not render a death sentence upon him, right? Like, fact. There is no justifiable system of criminal justice that would say a person who steals loses their life. Like, never mind, like the old lose your hand if you're a thief sort of thing. I wouldn't even go that far. Obviously,
it still happens in some countries.
Right. That said, at some point we have to put the responsibility for this individual's life back in their hands, right? And you can decide where in this interaction you want that to be. In my opinion, it would be better if, when, as you said earlier, the security guard is like, oh, nope, not today, buddy. Gig's up. Like, you're just going to have to put those back on the shelf. That's the moment. Like, okay, you win this time. Right. We'll see you next time.
Right.
Or at any point during this struggle, when the security guard has now let you up and is saying, just calm down, you can go, effectively, right? He lets him collect his bag, and then instead of just turning heel and running, he turns and makes that aggressive gesture. Right. It would be to my preference that the person who ended up getting shot didn't do that.
No, yes. I am in 100% agreement with you there. The shoplifter was the belligerent actor. I mean, this whole thing was because he was trying to steal something, right? So, yes, that is true. But what I'm saying is, one person has a gun, the other person does not have a gun. I know whatever claims, like, I didn't know at the time, blah, blah. He did not have a weapon on him. At no point he was on the ground. At no point did he reach for some weapon to get him out of the situation. Like, he had no weapon. Come on. He had no weapon.
Abe, if you're wrestling someone and you have relative control of the situation and they're continuing to shout at you, I'm going to stab you. Right. I think that it is completely rational to believe whether or not they have produced said weapon.
It is important that they do, though. That's what I'm saying. They have not produced anything. They're saying stuff. At this point, they are on a physical, like, we're just going to scuffle at worst, right? Basically, he's thinking the ceiling. I mean, even though the guy has got a gun, like, he's still in the mood that, like, we're not going to ask it. I'm going to just start saying nonsense. I mean, you see people argue all the time. I mean, at least in my neck of the woods here in Atlanta, people raise their voice and argue and do whatever. No one escalates it. Well, not no one, but, like, escalating something to, I'm just going to shoot you, can't be the way we go about living in a society. And even though it wasn't the intent of the DA, that is the message.
Then that gets to the crucial question here. Then I think in a way that's less specific and more in terms of principle or a question of law. Right. Do you think that it is a bad standard that what the DA is pointing to in the law, that the defendant reasonably believed that he was in imminent danger, if the defendant reasonably believed that he was in imminent danger of being killed or suffering great bodily injury, then it's not going to be
right. But like it didn't meet
a murder. So
it didn't meet that standard for me, right? There was no imminent. Like, he's saying there was, but there was no.
You can
imminent.
say that in the ex post facto rendition
No, but what
of
I'm saying is the current-
with all of the facts on the ground, we know this individual did not have a lethal weapon on him, right? That the threat was an idle threat to the extent that he could not have actually carried it out because he had no knife, right? That's 100% true, it seems. But is it also reasonable to believe that in the mind of the security guard, he believed that bodily injury was imminent, that great bodily harm was, he does not have to, according to the law, he does not have to be literally in fear that his life will be ended in order to take that shot. Do you think that's wrong? Should the standard for self-defense be raised beyond what it is now currently in the state of California?
Well, let me ask you just a question on that point. What is the basis to judge what somebody feels, right? If I'm sincerely, you see the similar actions, and then I, honest to God, I'm not even lying. I, honest to God, thought whatever verbal statements they were making, they were going to immediately follow through on it. I didn't want to give him the opportunity because, we're 6 feet apart. He can get some stabs in if you let him get to that point, right? So, you can
not
make
even
the case,
6 feet apart. They're 3 or at most. It's hard to see exactly because of the weird, the weird spherical nature of the video. Exactly what the distance is.
Yeah.
But to me, it's at most 3 to 5 feet distance. Not a ton of distance had been created.
Right.
And to me, I'll answer my question or your question. If someone says, "I have a knife, I'm going to stab you," and then they lunge towards me, I'm not saying that I'm going to shoot them.
Right.
I don't have a gun. I'd be fucked.
Right.
But I know what my fear response would be. My immediate fear response would be, "Oh fuck!" It wouldn't be, he's probably joking. Right.
But is that then the standard? Then, how do to me with what I call soft evidence, basically just state of mind and sincerely held beliefs or whatever. Are you saying put yourself in their position, and if you're I could see it, and that's the standard, or I don't see it, and then you're fucked? What is the determination to say that?
I think it's a very difficult thing to sort out in any sort of definitive way.
Right.
I think that in a funny way, this ties directly into an article that I sent you earlier in the week out of Slate.
Oh.
The first time that I have a notoriously shitty memory, as Lori will be happy to remind us of.
Not happy.
But there's an article in Slate, I'll make sure there's a link in the show notes, headlined, "One of the most sacred premises in American law is bunk." The reason that I sent it into the group chat, aside from its own inherent value, which I think it is interesting on its own merits, is that the first time I can remember seeing you get into an argument on the internet was on this very question, which is, I forget the context. Maybe you remember it, maybe you don't.
Yeah.
But it was basically a back and forth about whether or not it makes sense that the standard should be that it's better for 10 guilty men to go free than for one innocent man to languish in prison.
Right.
And you were in some fashion defending that principle, and the totality of the people responding to you were agog and aghast that this would be your position.
Right. And I think if I recall correctly, there was such a fixation as well, what if one of those people you let go, they were so fixated on the actual 10 that are being let free or what have you. And it's just the idea is that you want to construct a system where it's so rigorous that it errs on the side of caution, right? So have the standard of proof be high enough to where if somebody is convicted, they are they are convicted and they actually did do the thing, right? And
Right.
if the standard is such that it's high enough to where like some people, due to absence of evidence or whatever, they just didn't have eyewitnesses or they're lacking the necessary evidence to demonstrate in court that they're guilty, then they can be acquitted and you can live with a system like that because the alternative would be
Also,
worse.
and this doesn't show up in these sort of conversations a lot, but crucially, there's a lot of fucking guilty people walking around all the
Right.
fucking time,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, setting aside like our own personal moral failings, like any system of justice doesn't catch all the crimes.
Right.
There are people who commit crimes all the time, and there's not even a whisper
Right.
of anyone getting in trouble because of it, because nobody finds out about it, or it's like it's just too much. It's this fucking
Right.
ceaseless tide of criminality out there.
Right.
And so like the idea, like to me, it's just it has always been self-evident. I don't remember the first time that the maxim or the principle was presented to me in this Blackistonian fashion, which is the English jurist Sir William Blackstone famously expressed the view that it is, quote, better that 10 guilty persons escape than that one innocent suffer. That's like such a cornerstone
Right.
of my understanding of, I suppose, Western, the foundations of Western judicial systems, that it didn't even occur to me that people didn't just accept it as true. And here I see all of your friends arguing with you.
Like it's
Like as though Abe is the idiot alien from another world. I'm like, what? Did these people go to school? Like, surely we all went to the same basic schools. Like,
Right.
what got lost in translation here?
the whole due process that people say they're for is predicated on this, right? Like you have to actually prove the case. You can't just cut corners and just say, well, somebody did it, here's somebody off to jail. You know, like you have to have a rigorous system so that you're not convicting innocent people.
Right. So the article points to this multiple studies that have been done by the authors. It says they asked people, which of the following errors at trial do you believe causes more harm to society? 1, erroneously convicting an innocent person. 2, failing to convict a guilty person. Or 3, the errors are equally bad. Most respondents answered that the errors were equally bad. Our first results showing widespread rejection of the Blackstone ratio were so surprising and potentially disruptive that we tested their robustness multiple times using a series of large samples drawn from the entire United States population and multiple measurement methods. Across multiple national surveys sampling more than 12,000 people, which, reminder, a halfway decent survey is of like 1,100 people with a margin of error. That'll give you a margin of error if it's a correct population sample of 3.5 points, right? It could go either way, 3.5 points. That's just 1,100 people. They did more than 10 times that. They talked to 12,000 people. We have found that a majority of Americans, more than 60%, consider false acquittals and false convictions to be equally bad outcomes. Most people are not Blackstonians. They are unwilling to err on the side of letting the guilty go free to avoid convicting the innocent. Indeed, a sizable minority viewed false acquittals as worse than false convictions. This group is willing to convict multiple innocent persons to avoid letting one guilty person go free. You would not want those people on your jury if you were charged with a crime.
Right. Neither would those people, right? None of the
Right.
people who subscribe to that theory would want them to be in that jury.
I bring this up in relation to our earlier conversation in a bad faith attempt to prove that, Abe, you have no principles or morals whatsoever.
Yes.
No, it's just that the same thing that informs my reaction to the Blackstone formulation is the same thing, at least in my head, that informs my reaction to what's going on here with this video out of San Francisco, which is that I think it would be, if it were the case that this security guard was acting as he says he was acting, right? If we give him that possibility that he did have this reasonable fear that he was about to be stabbed, that it would be a travesty. It would be a severe miscarriage of justice for him to spend 3 years or 10 years or 20 years in prison because of his actions that day. That doesn't mean that I think that his actions were correct or justifiable or that there isn't some very serious moral weight to the action that he took. I think all of those things.
How would you feel then about reading my philosophy homework and talking about that?
Yeah, I think that we will, in fact, do that.
Because I'm having, I'm very bad at reading. So I was hoping that you could read and just tell me what it says.
Lori's taking, I was going to talk about this in a few minutes here.
Yeah, but it ties into this justice thing that you're onto, and it is late, and I am tired.
Yeah, we're wrapping up here.
Yeah.
Abe, is the thing that I just brought up, the Blackstone connection here, does that do anything to your way of thinking about what we've been discussing tonight?
No, because I think the issue is that you are accepting as fact what he's saying. I don't think
I am accepting as possible,
right,
and maybe even probable,
right.
There's a benefit of the doubt calculation happening here. I'm not accepting it as fact.
Right.
I'm accepting it as highly plausible based on all of the information we have, with the possible exception of my first blush at the video, right? And that was important in my understanding of this, which is that my immediate visceral reaction to watching the video was that something catastrophically wrong had been done by the security guard.
Right.
But upon thinking about it, upon reflecting on the information that is not contained in that video, which to me crucially is the audio. Right. Like the complete lack of audio makes it much more difficult to get a full picture of what's going on in that store there. And then having read through the DA's argument and acknowledging that it is an argument, that he is trying to sell me something, I come down on the side that it would be wrong for this person to spend time in prison, given the things that we don't know.
Right. And all I'm saying is my take on the video and reading through the justification is that there were opportunities aplenty to de-escalate on the part of the security guard. There was a disregard for life, and that's enough to at least take it to court. Now, I'm not, if they acquit him, that's fine. But just saying we're not going to prosecute sends a message that this is not even close. This is well, whatever. That's what you get. You reap what you sow, or whatever statement people want to throw out there. And this is going to make things worse. I'm just saying, don't be so cavalier about incidents like this, because what message are you sending when you're not even looking
right,
into
and I will make the
case?
reactionary Fox News point without hopefully being too reactionary or Fox News-like, which is to say, what message are you sending by prosecuting this guy with second-degree murder or something like that, or unlawful homicide in some way?
Because the evidence is pointing towards that.
I mean, that's kill people.
We are a nation of laws, after all, right? You have to.
Okay, but if you're going to say that a message is being sent by failing to prosecute here, and that message arguably is, don't fucking shoplift in our city, you bums,
or we'll kill you. That would be the message, right? I mean, we're gonna kill you because you stole some. Again, I'm not for stealing, right? But these are not of equal. It's a disproportionate response to the crime. To just
right, but all I'm saying is that an argument can be made, I think, reasonably so, that prosecuting this to the maximum extent possible in a way that Chesa Boudin might have would instead result in another message being sent, which is it's open season, and anybody who interferes with a robbery or a theft in some way is going to be vulnerable to prosecution himself, right?
Right.
That the act of physically assaulting someone because they are in the act of stealing something from your store itself is frowned upon, and therefore it sends the message that shoplifting is just fine.
Right, and I mean, I think that's a ridiculous argument because, again, you had opportunities to not shoot. All the other stuff is fine. like the engagement and the physical altercation.
Right, and for me, like, I just can't get past the fact that yes, he had every opportunity to not shoot had he been in complete command of all of the relevant facts at the time, but that is an impossible standard to put onto that person's head. And yeah, I mean, there are whatever. I think that we are at the impasse that we expected to be at with this conversation, and that's fine. There's no point in arguing it further into the ground at this point.
Do you think not that anybody would want to admit that the hope is that this deters this sort of thing, but do you think that there's going to be a decrease of like these kind of cavalier crimes, like where people just waltz in with a security guard there? Like,
no, I think generally speaking, anecdotes like this have much less of a narrative impact than people give them credit for, and people largely just walk around doing whatever it is that people do with their lives, and this sort of thing works at best on the absolute margins of like some fucking idiot teen maybe deciding not to fucking steal the Game Boy or whatever. Like, I don't know.
Right.
No is my answer to that question. All right. So, as Lori suggested, she is in fact taking an intro to ethics class, which is very similar in its reading assignments as my introductory ethics class was way back in 2002 or something. No, it makes perfect sense that it is. She's read the Euthyphro, the Platonic Socratic dialogue by Plato, in which Socrates has an argument just before he goes.
The Socrates person is a dick.
He's discussing with this other individual.
He's an on-purpose dick.
Can we define piety, and how does piety relate to justice? And they come to a rather unsatisfactory conclusion. Which is
skip to the end. The answer is no.
Which is one of befuddlement.
We cannot.
And it's an incredibly, though it's sort of one of the lesser Socratic dialogues, by my memory, in terms of being something enjoyable to read. It's not particularly.
It's not because it's horribly written.
Sure, I understand why it is used though as among the very first things that you read. From Plato and Socrates, which is because it ultimately ends with sort of shrug. Maybe we can't actually fucking know any of this shit, and you should be less confident in...
But they don't, like, shake hands and be friends.
All right, Lori is asking for there to be not only no answers or consequences, but no stakes or no interesting characters involved either.
As long as we're not going to have some conclusion, we might as well go like, oh, well, look, we learned something together today.
Yeah,
Instead, it's like, well, fuck you. Well, fuck you too.
Except that guy is like, I fucking know all this shit, and fuck you, Socrates. And Socrates is like, not so sure about that guy. Why don't you define literally anything that you're saying here? Anyway, I do want to do like philosophy class with Abe / Lori here for the next few weeks, so I'll make sure that there
philosophy class with Abe for Lori.
Right. She's got the Euthyphro. We've got.
I'll send you the thing.
She's reading parts of the Republic, the Nicomachean Ethics.
It's rough.
There's some good stuff in there.
There isn't.
And so I'm sure we'll get to that. One other thing, Lori keeps asking if we're going to talk about ice cream, and obviously...
No. I want to go to bed.
No, I know. And I want to invite... I haven't yet invited Mark Gillig to join us for that conversation, but I very much believe that he would have interesting things to say about academia and
ice cream.
The nature of scientific studies and confidence in those studies, and the fact of science being done, and how much of one's preconceived notions about one's conclusions can go into the interpretation of your findings. And I think that he would be useful to have as part of that conversation. I've not yet extended that invitation to him.
Does he listen to the show?
I have no idea if he listens to the show or not, actually. I know Jerry does, so maybe Jerry will hear this and then bother Mark.
Do you have his number?
Yeah, I texted him. I text him from time to time.
You don't have to ask your podcast to tell Jerry to ask.
I'm not. I'm just saying. The
Okay.
reason we haven't yet discussed.
This is why the world is the way it is. It's because of you men being this way.
It's
We
right
haven't
here.
discussed the ice cream stuff yet.
Just ask.
Because I think Mark has relevant information or opinions at least, to bestow upon that
Okay,
conversation.
well, I'm open to getting many ice creams to make sure which is best.
You've been listening to Cast Iron Brains, a podcast with Bob and Abe. Find the show on Facebook or Twitter. Head on over to brainiron.com for a show note, which will include links to both the DA's report and also that fucking Faces of Death video that Abe sent me at 7:30 this morning while I was trying to enjoy my Wordle. You son of a bitch. The opening and closing themes of the show were composed by Mark Gillig, tetramermusic.com, Tetramer music.com. Abe, did you make it to the movies this week?
I did. Actually, had we recorded on Monday, I would not have. I didn't have time to watch it last week, but I probably should have just skipped this week because it's between that Guardians movie and Fast 10.
Yeah, did you cry?
I thought you saw Guardians 3
I know.
last week, right?
Yeah, so Guardians of the Galaxy was out like a week or two ago, and then like Fast 10 is coming out this week, and there was no like major release in between. right?
Gotcha.
And so I went to go see this movie that I'm sure no one's ever heard of. It's called Hypnotic. It stars Ben Affleck. It was one of these release dump movies where there's like almost no advertisement for it. Like I just saw it
Right.
on my app, like this Ben Affleck has a new movie. And I was like, all right, how bad can it be?
Right. One of these, we already dumped $35 million into this piece of shit.
Yes.
And throwing another $35 million at it isn't going to do the
Right.
trick.
Take the
So
loss.
We'll just
And,
put it
yeah,
out there.
It crashed and burned. I think it made like $2 million, if that. Like very bad showing, but it makes sense because they did no advertising, and there's a reason for it. The movie is just awful. Like it's called Hypnotic. It's about some cockamamie hypnosis scheme. Like, you know, Ben Affleck is a hypnotist, and his wife is one, and his kid is one, and some big evil entity wants to like weaponize their kids' hypnosis because apparently they're very strong because the parents are like strong or some bullshit. And so the whole movie is that, like Ben Affleck trying to protect some kid, his kid, and like it's a 90-minute movie, and like 40 minutes of it is explaining why the things are happening. Like there's way too much like exposition where they're just like explaining every single
This
thing
is
that's
directed.
happening.
This is a Robert Rodriguez
Yeah,
movie. This
yeah.
is a legitimate director. What happened?
I saw the star. I saw the director. Like, how bad could it be? It was fairly bad. Just a bad movie.
65. So my guess, $35 million is wrong. Cost $65 million to make.
No way.
It made
60.
It made $2.3 million this weekend.
By the way, there is no 65 million.
Some
in
small
the movie.
number of which were your dollars.
I was like maybe like part of like 10 people in that theater. Very bad showing.
Probably one of the busiest screens, actually.
Actually,
Only $2 million made.
The people that were in my theater were enjoying it. You know, I always find these.
What's the math on that? So I see let me do the math real quick. It's $2.35 million divided by 2,100 screens. It was $1,100 per screen that they made. Probably 3 showings per screen per day. Not great.
No, but again, it's not a good movie, so it's gonna come and go.
All right. Well, we'll look forward to skipping that one when it auto plays on the Netflix in a few months here. Let's see. I've been playing the new Zelda game after baseball this week. Nintendo released the Tears of the Kingdom, the sequel follow-up to the 2017 Smash success Zelda game called Breath of the Wild. It is every bit as wonderful as Breath of the Wild, and possibly even more so. I don't know how they do it. The most impressive thing to me about this Zelda game here, just a couple of hours of gameplay in, is the extent to which everything just fucking works. And it works in a way that, like, the top line Nintendo games almost always work, and you just sort of have to figure out what how Mario moves in this particular iteration, and then it always just fucking works. And it has never been the case that on PlayStation or Xbox or other video games that I've played that aren't top-line Nintendo games. They might be on Nintendo system, but they're not Nintendo's like A-list effort. Shit doesn't always fucking work. Like you want the character to do the thing, and he doesn't fucking do the thing. Or like I play the Spider-Man game on the PlayStation 5, which is actually a really good game, and it's really well done. But sometimes like fucking Spidey the physics of it just don't work. Like and the computer has to catch up, and the input that you're doing doesn't quite translate precisely the way you want it to what's happening on the screen.
Right.
With the Zelda game, it all just fucking works, and the physics of it all makes sense, and they now have given you the ability to take any two objects in the game and fuse them together and make an entirely new object. You can build crazy wild contraptions with basically all of the materials that you see in the game, and you can this is this giant sandbox that you can do almost anything your imagination will allow you to do. And it all still fucking works. That's inconceivable to me. How that is even possible to allow for one of hundreds of different weapons to be fused with one of hundreds or many, many hundreds of different materials in this game, and for each of them to have specific physical rules of how they interact in this in-game universe, and for it to always fucking work. And that's the thing that my mind is just utterly blown by. And also, it's so much fun. Like, if you like the previous game, go get this game. Don't even think about it. Of course, I'm preaching to the converted. This game sold nearly $1 billion.
What?
They've sold.
Everybody bought it.
10 million copies of this game
shit.
in the first week of launch at $70 a pop. So it's $700 million in revenue in 1 week of this video game being out.
And I'm sitting there watching Hypnotic. I should get in this Zelda racket.
It's so much fun.
Yeah, it's good. I don't think I'm going to be able to play it. I don't think I'm smart enough.
You are smart enough. You have all of the smarts necessary to read both Plato and also play Zelda, just like your dumb husband. So that's what I've been doing while Lori reads her Plato and complains about it. And
it's just bad.
Yeah, I will not abide you talking trash about.
I'm not talking
the
trash. I
texts.
said you could do it better.
The texts.
I'm complimenting you when I said that you could write this better. I think it should all be rewritten.
The texts that are among the literal foundations for all of Western civilization.
You want to listen to old blues, or do you want to listen to the Rolling Stones? You want to listen to the Rolling Stones.
Are
you don't
old
want to listen to
blues.
old
What are you talking about?
No, before that.
I want to listen to a new Queens of the Stone Age record. That's what I want to
They're
listen
still
to.
making music?
Okay, or do you want to listen to like early 1900s blues guitar with an old man groaning? Like that's
I also
what this is.
would like to listen to that sometimes. Some old Robert Johnson stuff is good stuff. We watched Succession. That was really the only piece of pop culture that we watched.
We watched something.
What else? What was it?
The fuck did we? We watched the Bullet Train.
Oh yeah, we watched Bullet
it was
Train.
so good. Loved Bullet Train.
Bullet Train was on Netflix. Has
with
been
Brad
for a little
Pitt
while.
and company?
Yeah.
No,
That's a disappointing movie. That's
No,
a movie that's not
it was great.
nearly as clever or fun as it feels like it should have been. And I suppose I'm complaining about something that wasn't made.
My only recollection of movies nowadays, just like how the crowd was, and the crowd really was into that movie. Like I remember,
It was so fun.
It was fine. It was cute.
What do you want from things?
I want it to be fucking great. You know what? It wasn't. It was not nearly as transformative or entertaining or awesome as Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels was, right? And that's sort of the mode that's going on there.
More.
Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels blows this movie out of the water.
That one was sad.
As much fun as, and some degree of fun was had, fine.
I think this shouldn't be a complaint because it's a movie and you have to kind of let some things slide. But whenever they do like a train derailment or there's like a big thing where there's no way you could possibly survive, and they come out of it
No,
like
it's
almost
fine.
unscathed. It's just like, come on, like just hold on to something or do like it just seems like ridiculous. Like
all of the relevant parties, not just one, but everyone continues to survive incredibly lethal situations unless they're a henchman or a no-name extra.
Yeah,
right?
they
It's
die.
a classic plot armor.
But yeah, also Succession, and Shiv finally got fucking called
Oh,
out
man.
for being the most duplicitous person on that show.
They're always like running neck and neck. Like everybody's like tied for like worst.
No.
But like Shiv had,
No one is as like says one thing, does
Yeah.
another as she is.
Right.
They all are terrible.
And-
Well-
but no one is quite as says one thing, does another as her. And it's
Fucking-
been 4 years of this, and I'm so glad she finally got caught.
Fucking women, am I right?
you know what's interesting about Shiv is that she's not adept at all like at like trying to like win somebody over like to do their bidding. Like it's always like you're gonna do this or like trying to order people around, and it doesn't seem to always work. And she'll put herself in sure to fail situations where I'm gonna pretend to call somebody. Like wasn't one of the possibilities that there would be a follow-up call to say,
Yep.
are you sure?
Well,
No,
she's
can
screwed
you
up,
wink at me?
finally.
Something. This is, by the way, this is not just this episode, but Shiv had an all-time awful sequence of episodes. Just like marriages falling apart, like she's getting cut out of the whole CEO thing.
That is of her own doing.
Yeah, a lot of this stuff, but it's still, I mean, like just her decision making. When I was watching this, I know this is not something other people would agree with, but her decision making was like Peyton Manning in the playoffs level bad. Like it was just terrible, just the whole way, just bad choice after bad choice.
Kendall, as arrogant and sort of convinced of his own superiority generally as he might be, has also within him a sort of crucial humanizing humility because of the abuse that he suffered at the hands of his father, right? Like he doesn't buy his own bullshit a lot of the time. Shiv thinks that she's the smartest person in the room and doesn't really doubt that she's the smartest person in the room, but can't even corral Kendall, can't even manipulate one of the most easily manipulated people imaginable.
I mean, she did make an attempt, and it was kind of like an out of bounds attempt, you know, where like trying to invoke some sort of family thing, like you're not a obviously shitty father that he is, like just to kind of like win him over. So it's like she's made attempts to kind of like win somebody over, and it doesn't work.
Right. Also, so this is my, maybe it's I shouldn't be complaining about the writing of the show. I should just be talking about the show that we have in front of us. But why is she so stupid in that moment as to not place a real phone call? Because what is the harm in talking to Nate and being like, Nate, man, they're gonna hand it to Mencken here unless you can tell me that you'll try to put the brakes on this deal. You tell me that you'll try to put the brakes on this deal, and yes, this is icky, but fucking welcome to the world. You try to put the brakes on this deal, and obviously, like to me, it's super obvious that a Democratic administration could justify not wanting to allow the sale of the right-wing media empire to a foreign investor, right? Even though we don't care for the Fox News equivalent in this universe, we don't want it being sold to a bunch of fucking Nordics. Like that's not good either. So like to me, why didn't she just make the fucking phone call? You make that call, you try to get some sort of language of concession out of him anyway, to save the day. Not just to save your own ass, but to save the day.
Yeah, that I'm not sure what the reason was. I read somewhere like online that she was conflicted because like even though like for democracy or whatever nonsense she was professing, she would want the other guy to win. Like this would have screwed up her deal, and that's why she didn't call. But that story didn't track. Like, I mean, she wants... It
doesn't track because then you just turn around a week later and you're like, yeah, fucking forget that. Like, yeah, if I want Mattson to take over, then yeah, you call him back and you're like, no, like that wasn't a thing. But like in the moment, the smart thing to do there is to try to get Nate to give that concession over the phone. And I can't get past that that's bad writing.
Do you think it speaks to just her state of mind? I mean, they're all in a kind of diminished capacity, almost like, talking about poker earlier, like on tilt, like, because even though this is happening over like a couple of months that we're watching it, in their universe, this is just a few days since their old man died, right? This is all happening.
Right. Except Roman. Roman is the one who's not operating on tilt at all. Roman appears to be in full command of his limited capacities.
Even him, like his tilt towards this fascist, like bozo, right? You don't think like that he's kind of like just grasping? I think he's kind of like spiraling.
I think Shiv just didn't want to feel weak.
Right. He's kind of reacting to something. I mean, he's erratic, like with the fire rings, like Jerry's not going to sue him, like the person sending dick pics to. And then, like, he's kind of tilting. Like, I mean, it's already like a conservative media outlet, but apparently there's like a firewall. The way that initially they're like, you shouldn't be down here to like tell us how to report the election coverage. But he's going there saying, it could have been anybody who burned that Democratic-leaning district thing. Like, having that guy, his attack dog going on television. Like, he's doing all of these things to force an outcome that he wants. And, like, I don't think he's like some, like sober-minded person. He's kind of, like, reacting to things, too. I think they're all a little off because of just what's going on. And they're kind of, like, fucking up,
yeah, it's been and I think that it's to the extent that Roman is reading the whole situation wrong. Him declaring that Mencken has won Wisconsin and therefore the presidency doesn't actually make it happen.
Right.
It only creates the conditions on the ground for chaos to happen. And in the likely event that the Democrat ends up winning after all, in the real world of the show, he won't have gained anything. Right. Like you will have attached yourself to a horse that was never in the barn in the first place. So
also, how awful was that to watch? An election night when it's not our election night?
It was weirdly disconcerting in a way that I didn't expect. Like in a like, why am I being subjected to this?
Oh God!
In May, without 2 years of proper build-up and girding myself and possibly ensconcing myself in fucking Orlando, in literally in Disney World, so that I don't have to see the real world for the week around the election.
You can make that a yearly thing. I'm into it.
It should be like a 4-year tradition, Just.
It was strangely sort of. I mean, I don't want to use the Kevin Smith language of trauma and harm. It was, but it rung that bell, certainly.
Right, it's interesting
it's
how
not even real.
All of the main people that we've come to loathe, like all the main actors, they're just so careless about like whatever, because like they're not going to face any consequence either direction. They're still going to be rich. They're still going to be living their lives. And they're just like, whatever. Like, none of them probably even voted, right? Like, they're just like, who cares?
Also, the New York Times finally did an actual article about the lack of food eaten on the show.
Oh, they noticed it.
Yes, finally. A legitimate publication talked about, like, eating on the show is rare, and when it's done, it's the sign of weakness. Someone did it. I didn't have to.
Yeah, like Tom is often commenting on other people's eating habits as though they're sort of disgusting and beneath the class of the sort of person that he would like to associate himself with. Right.
So it seems like all of these people, it's not like it's going to stop with Shiv. Like she's in a very weak position now, although like the way the episode ended, like she's got, I guess, one more angle. But like there's going to be one more episode and then the finale. So 2 more episodes and the
2 more episodes, only 2 more days, right? So this was on a Tuesday. We've got Logan's funeral on a Wednesday, and then whatever happens on Thursday.
Right.
So it's going to be weird that we won't have any resolution of the election storyline,
right?
Because this is something that will be dragged out in the course. So there's not going to be some epilogue, presumably, where we find out what happens, whether or not the country burned.
I mean,
I suppose that's all beside the point.
Right.
But
since there are just 2 more episodes, I know they said the last episode is going to be a 90-minute length long episode, but there's not enough time to kind of like do like a January 6th thing, like the run up to like.
That's Memorial Day, isn't it?
What's that? Oh yeah, it is
Yeah,
that
2
weekend.
weeks.
Yeah, like
I'll wake
you
up
would
early.
think like just to kind of speed up the process of like this ATN or whatever got it wrong. Like it seemed like they're trending in that direction where their call is going to be seen as premature and they fucked it up and it's going to create chaos, blah blah blah. For that to be true, there's got to be some sort of quick resolution to that precinct to say actually. We preserve, like, you know, kind of...
Right, the ballots were in a fireproof box or something
like that. And
right,
they counted it, and then the lead went the other way, and it was clear. And now they look like... And then, like, all this... Because they're going to
Like
start...
that good meme with the football runner.
The football runner.
Yep.
What?
The funny one from last year, the ballots,
that's
the
right,
absentee
where
ballots. It was funny. It was football.
He caught
the
up
guy
to
was
him.
tackled.
Yeah, I think it was like one of those, like... remember...
It was the Falcons, I think.
it was like, somebody like caught up, like some Arizona Cardinal, and it was like basically like same day votes and then the mail-in votes, like the lead
right.
switched or whatever. But
It'll be like that.
Great podcast moment just now.
Whatever. I said it was late half an hour ago. This is what happens.
But
Your bed's right upstairs, lady.
So is yours.
but real quick, I think that there's gonna have to be like throwing each other under the bus. Like, who made the decision to make the call? Like that guy from like Breaking Bad, Gray Matter guy. Like that was like, I don't know why he would want to inject himself into like, I'll go and explain this away. Don't do that. Stay away from the cameras. Like, don't try to explain this mess. Like, they're gonna try to get it. Maybe it'll be that Wamsgone, that Tom guy. Like, maybe somebody's gonna get like, this person decided to jump the gun.
Right. Well, they seeded that in the near closing moments of the show where they showed footage from the CNN like competitor, the PGN.
That's right. Yeah, because they're doing a hit piece on it.
They put Tom's picture on the television, and they're like, he personally made this call, and so it's obvious that I guess Tom will be the fall guy here.
But that means somebody in the circle fed that information. Let's say it was Tom. Like somebody threw him under the bus.
Right, not necessarily even in the circle, but definitely somewhere inside of ATM.
Probably Roman, like, you know, because he's the one that actually was pushing for it, so he could throw his Tom, his brother-in-law.
Credit to I dumped on the writers earlier for the Shiv stuff, but credit to them for creating a believable election night catastrophe that could lead to this sort of scenario. Like a lot of times when you. Like, if I ever read a story about the fucking pizza business, I'm like, well, that's fucking all wrong, right?
What stories do you read about pizza business?
I don't know. You read something about, like, how franchising works in Domino's or Papa John's or something. It's like,
not quite.
It's not... Yeah. This is not... there's a term for it. There's a term of art for it that I can't quite remember. But anytime you read a story about something that you are intimately familiar with, you, like Lori, if you read a story about life as a hairdresser in a college town, you'd be like, this is all fucking bullshit. Somebody like myself who's intimately familiar or imagines myself to be well-read on election news matters, this read as a believable scenario.
Plausible.
And it was fun to watch, certainly. It wasn't fun to watch, but it was
not. It was awful.
It was an entertaining... It was a good hour of TV, as Roman says at the end of the episode. Abe, you got anything else for us tonight?
Nope.
Well, I guess that's all we've got for tonight, then, and we will talk to you next time.
Later. I don't know what the initial sales pitch is, but I know when it doesn't go, like she'll scream something, the white man something, or like some weird thing like that, but like very loud.
You won't pay $20 for these fucking stupid beads, and now you're a white supremacist.
Yes. And these people are almost always people from like out of like the suburbs.
Right, they
or
come.
Like out of
they
town.
come to the Beltline to do a thing.
Right. Yeah. It's just the same, and nobody says anything. Like nobody ever like. Hey, cool it with a thing. I mean, this is actually, there's no like actual formal process. It's not like there are like vendor spots you got to like register for. People just post up anywhere. So like this person just posts up at like a prime spot. And just, if she doesn't make the sale, and
you got to get her on,
way,
you got to make her TikTok famous. You got to get video of this sales technique.
She's a little scary.
Have you
I'll
seen
let somebody
anybody
else do it.
get called a vicious, awful white man and then like fork over $20 out of guilt? Like,
Not yet. That would be funny. Most people, when it registers what's happening, because there's a bit of a delay. Like everybody just kind of like having fun, just walking about. Nobody, there's no like tension.
Right.
And out of the blue, this person just says it, and you're like, it takes a second for them to register it, and then they don't confront. They just, all right, let's just move on. I don't know what this person's about, but let's just move on.
I forgot to check on Strassman this week. I might get to double dip next week on Strassman. He did something with like a rapper or something. Not that like it was a couple of months ago, and I watched it 3 times because I like unbelieving that he didn't even try. Like I don't know if he was scared or something, but like there was one particular one that was like an incredible wealth of opportunity, and it was nothing. And it was
Nothing
something.
to do
I
with
think
it
it was
with it?
because there was a big cultural, like when he did the rednecks in Kentucky at the bourbon mill or whatever, or whatever
that's
sad
right, yeah.
town he goes to. It's like fucking letting the puns fly.
That's
But
right.
if it's a culture he's not accustomed to, I think he feels he's got to rein himself in.
Do you think it's that, or like there's a filtering process with one of the producers? Like maybe not so many puns on this one. And
No, I
he's like,
think
oh, this is
that
some bullshit.
The first one makes sense to me.
I think Strassman's self-aware enough.
Just like you don't want to, yeah, you can't be fully yourself when you're not in your own place.
You pun too hard in front of like an African American rapper, and you might accidentally slip into dialect or something. It's not a good thing for your prospects as a senior national news correspondent.
I know. He's like, I'm so close to retirement. They're not going to say anything to rock any boat. Just
Yeah.
stupid stories.
The proceeding was created with 100% human content.